It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the neighborhood supermarket was bustling with hurried customers. Amara, a young black mother in her early 30s, walked through the automatic doors, holding her infant son, Malik, snugly in her arms. Malik, with his large brown eyes and innocent smile, was mesmerized by the sounds and lights around him. For Amara, it was just another trip to the store, one of the many tasks she lovingly did for her family. Amara was in the habit of meticulously planning her shopping. Her grocery list was scribbled on a piece of paper she held in one hand, while the other kept Malik secure in her embrace. Every item on the list was carefully calculated to fit within the family's budget. Despite financial challenges, Amara always managed to provide the best she could for her son. As she walked through the store aisles, she felt the curious glances of other shoppers, something she had learned to ignore over the years. However, one particular stare felt more intense and unsettling. It came from a white police officer dressed in full uniform with his gun holstered and one hand resting on his belt. He stood near the supermarket entrance, watching her with a stern expression. A chill ran down Amara's spine, but she resolved not to let it distract her. She headed to the produce aisle, carefully picking out some bananas and apples, as Malik observed with curiosity. But when she turned to place the fruits in the cart, she noticed the officer was still watching her, now with even greater intensity. He began walking toward her, and her heart raced. The officer, who she would later learn was named Officer Parker, stopped beside her and, in a cold tone, said, "Can I help you with something? It seems like you're having trouble deciding what to buy." Amara tried to respond calmly, but the discomfort in her voice was evident. "No, thank you. I'm just shopping for my family." Parker didn't reply immediately. He stayed there, watching her, as if waiting for something. Amara felt the weight of his gaze and decided to move away, pushing the cart with one hand while holding Malik with the other. Yet she noticed he started following her through the aisles, keeping a short distance. As she continued shopping, the tension grew. Amara tried to stay composed, picking items from her list and placing them in the cart, but she could feel Parker's relentless eyes on her back. He said nothing, but his presence was intimidating. Other shoppers seemed to notice as well, but they avoided involvement, looking away or pretending nothing was happening. Finally, when Amara reached the dairy section, Parker decided to act. He approached her with firm steps and spoke loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Ma'am, I need you to empty your bag and show me what you're carrying. We have reason to believe you're attempting to steal." Amara froze. Her mind raced as she tried to process what he had just said. She looked at her bag, small, containing only her wallet, keys, and some wipes for Malik, and then back at the officer, shocked by the accusation. "Steal?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not stealing anything. I'm just here buying food for my family." Parker crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes, completely ignoring her response. "Empty the bag, now." Amara glanced around, hoping someone would intervene, but the other customers avoided eye contact, keeping their distance. Malik began squirming in her arms, sensing his mother's distress. Amara tried to soothe him while facing Parker's unyielding glare. "I don't need to empty anything." "You have no reason to accuse me," Amara said, struggling to control the tremor in her voice. But Parker didn't back down. He took a step closer, now clearly trying to intimidate her. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, ma'am. Cooperate, or I'll have to take more drastic measures." His threatening tone made it clear he was willing to escalate, and Amara felt panic rising. She knew she had done nothing wrong, but she also knew that in that moment her word might carry no weight against his. Her heart pounded as she struggled to decide what to do. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. Amara, with Malik now crying in her arms, felt trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. All she wanted was to leave with her son safely, but Parker's presence made that seem impossible. And then, in the midst of the tension, something unexpected happened. A strong, confident voice broke the silence of the aisle. "What's going on here? Why are you threatening this mother with a child in her arms?" Everyone turned to see a tall, imposing man with a charismatic smile but a serious expression. It was Terry Crews, the famous actor, who happened to be there by chance. The tension in the air shifted instantly, and Amara felt a spark of hope. But this was only the beginning of a battle that was far from over. The supermarket aisle was completely silent. Terry Crews's words seemed to freeze the moment as everyone waited for Officer Parker's reaction. The officer, caught off guard by the intervention of such a commanding presence, didn't respond immediately. His face hardened, as if he were struggling to maintain control of the situation. Amara, still holding Malik in her arms, felt a mix of relief and nervousness. She knew who Terry Crews was, the strong, charismatic actor who inspired so many with his story of overcoming challenges. But in that moment, he wasn't just an actor, he was her only hope of escaping this nightmare. "With all due respect, sir," Parker said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "this is a police matter. It doesn't concern you." Terry stepped forward, his eyes locked on the officer. His posture was firm, but his voice remained calm. "Oh, it concerns me. It concerns basic human decency. I can't stand by while you intimidate a mother who's clearly done nothing wrong. Where's your evidence? Have you searched her? Found anything?" Parker hesitated. He looked around, realizing he now had the attention of everyone. Some shoppers had started recording with their phones, capturing every moment. His discomfort was evident, but his arrogance wouldn't let him back down. "I don't need to explain my actions to you or anyone else here. This woman acted suspiciously, and I'm just doing my job." Amara, feeling the weight of his unjust words, couldn't stay silent any longer. "Suspicious behavior? All I've done is buy food for my son. You followed me around the store, treated me like a criminal, and now you're trying to justify it based on what? The color of my skin." The murmurs among the surrounding customers grew louder. It was clear many agreed with Amara, but were still hesitant to speak up. Terry seized the moment to strengthen his point. "You heard her, Parker. You're accusing a mother without evidence, driven by a prejudice that has no place in our society. I suggest you think carefully before you go any further." Parker took a step back, but his hand instinctively moved to his gun holster. Terry noticed the motion and raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Hey, no one here wants trouble. All we want is for you to do the right thing. Lower the tension, leave this woman alone, and move on." The officer seemed torn. His expression shifted between frustration and indecision. He knew that with so many cameras pointed at him, any rash action could have serious consequences. Still, his pride seemed to keep him from fully backing down. "Fine," Parker finally said, "but I'm not admitting to anything. I'll just leave it at that for now." He turned and started walking away, but Terry didn't let him off so easily. "Hold on," Terry said firmly. "Before you go, know this. This isn't over. We have videos, witnesses, and most importantly, the truth. This abuse of power won't be ignored." Parker didn't respond. He walked away quickly, clearly irritated, as the customers around them began to applaud softly. Amara, her eyes brimming with tears, felt a wave of relief. For the first time since the ordeal began, she felt she wasn't alone. Terry turned to her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked sincerely. Amara nodded, though her voice still trembled. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Terry smiled, trying to reassure her. "You don't deserve to go through this. No one does. We'll make sure you get the support you need to fight this injustice." As the murmurs and recording continued, Terry helped Amara finish her shopping. He insisted on staying with her through checkout, ensuring she felt safe. Before leaving, he made sure to gather contact information from witnesses willing to speak about the incident. Outside the supermarket, Amara took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air on her face. Malik had finally calmed down and was now asleep in her arms. She looked at Terry, still by her side, and said, "I don't know how to thank you. You were an angel today." Terry shook his head humbly. "I'm not an angel, Amara. I'm just someone who believes in doing what's right, and I'll make sure your story is heard." Amara felt a mix of gratitude and hope. She knew what had happened was just the beginning of a long battle, but for the first time, she had allies. And that made all the difference. The morning after the supermarket incident brought a whirlwind of emotions for Amara. Sitting in her modest kitchen with Malik playing on the floor, she scrolled through messages on her phone. Videos of the confrontation with Officer Parker had gone viral overnight, amassing thousands of views and comments. Among the messages of support and outrage, Amara realized just how deeply her story had resonated with people. Terry Crews had kept his promise. Just hours after the incident, he had reached out to civil rights attorneys and anti-racism activists. By morning, he had sent Amara a message: "We're with you. We will fight for justice." Those words gave her a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Terry arranged a meeting with a renowned civil rights attorney, Dr. Marcus Hill. With extensive experience in cases of discrimination and abuse of power, Dr. Hill was determined to take Amara's case forward. Sitting in a brightly lit conference room, Amara, Terry, and Dr. Hill reviewed the videos and statements from witnesses who had volunteered to help. "This is a clear case of abuse of authority and racial discrimination," Dr. Hill said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed the documents. "Officer Parker's behavior was unacceptable, and we have enough evidence to push for a formal investigation." Amara listened intently, absorbing every detail. Despite Dr. Hill's confidence, a heavy weight lingered in her heart. The thought of facing the police in court was daunting, but she knew she had to do it, not just for herself, but for Malik and for everyone who had faced similar injustices. As the case gained attention, the local community began to mobilize. Activist groups organized a rally in support of Amara, demanding that the police department hold Parker accountable for his actions. Signs with messages like "Justice for Amara" and "Say no to racism" filled the streets near the supermarket. Initially hesitant, Amara decided to attend the rally. With Malik in her arms and Terry by her side, she faced the crowd with newfound courage. Stepping onto a small makeshift stage, she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I never imagined I'd be here, speaking to so many people about something so painful. What happened to me and my son was unjust, but thanks to all of you, I know I'm not alone. Together, we can fight to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Her voice trembled, but her words were met with warm applause. For the first time, she felt the power of her voice and her story. Days later, a hearing was scheduled to address the case. Amara was nervous, but the presence of Terry, Dr. Hill, and several witnesses gave her confidence. In the courtroom, Parker appeared far less confident than he had in the supermarket. He avoided eye contact and seemed uncomfortable under the watchful gaze of the judge and spectators. Dr. Hill meticulously presented the evidence. The videos clearly displayed Parker's intimidating behavior, while witness statements reinforced the narrative of abuse and discrimination. When it was Amara's turn to testify, she spoke from the heart. "All I wanted was to buy food for my son. Instead, I was treated like a criminal simply because of the color of my skin. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, and that's why I'm here today." When Parker was called to defend his actions, he attempted to justify them, but his words rang hollow against the evidence. The judge, after hearing all sides, ruled that there was sufficient basis to launch a formal investigation against him. The ruling was a significant milestone, but the greatest impact was felt beyond the courtroom. Amara's case sparked nationwide discussions about racism and abuse of power. Social media was flooded with messages of support and stories from others who had faced similar situations. Through her courage, Amara had become a symbol of resilience and hope. As for Parker, he was suspended from duty while the investigation continued. His reputation was in ruins, and public pressure ensured he would face the consequences of his actions. By the end of that day, as Amara walked home with Malik and Terry, she felt a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Though the fight was far from over, she knew she had taken an important step toward a better future. "You were amazing today," Terry said, smiling at her. "I couldn't have done it without you," Amara replied, gratitude shining in her eyes. "No, Amara, that strength was always inside you. I was just here to remind you of it." With Malik sleeping in her arms, Amara looked to the horizon and for the first time in a long while felt hopeful. Her fight wasn't just for justice, it was for a world where her son could grow up without fear. And with so many people standing by her side, she knew that world was possible. The days following the hearing marked a true turning point in Amara's life. The case continued to gain traction, and the police department, under pressure from public opinion, announced measures to investigate not only Parker, but also other potential abuses within the force. For the first time, Amara felt that her voice had sparked real, tangible change. Meanwhile, Officer Parker was formally suspended from his duties, awaiting the conclusion of the investigations. Tensions within the department were palpable, and other officers began to come forward about abusive behaviors they had witnessed. Amara's case had become a catalyst for broader reforms. With Terry Crew's support, Amara was invited to attend a community meeting in her city. The event, organized by civil rights groups, aimed to discuss racism, abuse of power, and solutions to prevent similar situations in the future. Nervous but determined, Amara stepped onto the stage to share her story. As she looked out at the crowd, she saw faces of all ages and ethnicities, united by a shared desire for change. "When I walked into that supermarket, I was just a mother trying to take care of my child. I never imagined this would turn into a fight for justice. But today, I see that this fight is not just mine, it's ours. And together, we can ensure that no one else has to go through what I did." Amara's words were met with warm applause. Terry, sitting in the front row, smiled and nodded in approval, proud of her courage. A few weeks later, a final hearing was held to conclude the case against Officer Parker. Dr. Marcus Hill once again delivered a compelling argument, highlighting not only Parker's actions, but also the broader impact of his behavior on the community. When the decision was announced, the room fell silent. The judge declared that Parker would be officially dismissed from his position and have his license revoked. Additionally, the court recommended the creation of an independent committee to review cases of abuse of authority within the police department. Amara felt a wave of relief as she heard the verdict. Justice had been served, but what she celebrated most was the promise of structural changes that could benefit so many others. With the case behind her, Amara decided to channel her energy into something greater. Inspired by the community mobilization she had witnessed, she founded an organization called Roots of Hope. The initiative provided support to victims of discrimination and abuse while offering educational workshops on civil rights. Terry remained by her side, helping to promote the organization and connecting Amara with influential individuals willing to support the cause. Together, they organized fundraisers, lectures, and awareness campaigns. Months later, in a small park where she often took Malik to play, Amara reflected on everything that had happened. Watching her son run around carefree, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and hope. Terry, sitting beside her, remarked, "You turned your pain into something incredible, Amara. Not everyone can do that." She smiled and replied, "I didn't do it alone. It was the strength of the community, of people like you, that helped me get here. And I know we still have a lot of work to do, but I feel like we're on the right path." As the sun set, Amara stood up to embrace Malik, who laughed as he ran toward her. She knew the future would bring more challenges, but she also believed that with courage and solidarity, it was possible to build a fairer world. And so, Amara's journey became an enduring example of resilience and inspiration for everyone fighting for a better tomorrow.